Chosen one, pause what you're doing right now. What I'm about to share with you isn't meant for casual listeners or those scrolling mindlessly through content. This message carries weight, spiritual weight. And if you're hearing these words right now, it's no coincidence. Your spirit led you here at this exact moment because there's something you need to understand about what's been happening in your life lately. Have you noticed how certain people around you react when you enter a room? Have you felt that strange tension at work that you can't quite explain? Have you sensed that invisible wall between you and your colleagues even though you've done nothing wrong? Listen closely, because today we're going to uncover the spiritual truth behind these experiences, and by the end of this message, you'll understand exactly why your presence affects people the way it does. Before we dive deeper, I need to know you're really here with me. If this message is resonating with your spirit right now, show me you're present. Leave a comment with 444 if you're ready for divine revelation, 555 if you're experiencing spiritual warfare right now, or 777 if you know transformation is coming. And please, if you've been feeling isolated or misunderstood lately, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. There are others like you who need to hear this truth, so share this with someone who's been walking through the same spiritual battle. Now let's begin, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you see everything that's been happening around you. You carry something that most people will never understand. From the moment you wake up to the moment you rest your head at night, there's an energy that moves with you, surrounds you, protects you. It's not something you created or manufactured. You didn't learn it from a seminar or develop it through practice. This is divine presence, and it's been with you since before you were born. The Creator placed a mark on your life, a spiritual signature that announces itself in every space you occupy. People don't need to know your story to feel your energy. They don't need to understand your journey to sense that you're different. Their spirits recognize what their minds cannot comprehend, and this recognition is what triggers everything you've been experiencing. Think about the moments when you've walked into your workplace and felt the atmosphere shift. You weren't trying to make an entrance. You weren't seeking attention or attempting to stand out. You simply arrived, yet something changed. Conversations that were flowing freely suddenly became guarded. Laughter that filled the air moments before seemed to fade. Eyes that were focused elsewhere suddenly turned toward you, sometimes with curiosity, sometimes with something else entirely. This isn't your imagination playing tricks on you, and it's not paranoia or insecurity. What you're sensing is real, and it's happening in the spiritual realm before it manifests in the physical. Your presence carries a frequency that not everyone can handle. It's like walking into a room with a light that reveals things people prefer to keep hidden. Your energy exposes insecurities that others have buried deep. It highlights the emptiness that many have learned to mask with performance and pretense. When someone who lives in spiritual alignment enters a space filled with people who are spiritually disconnected, there's a clash, an invisible collision of energies. The person walking in truth doesn't even have to speak, and already the atmosphere begins to respond. Those who are living in pretense feel uncomfortable because your authenticity reminds them of their own masks. Those who are chasing external validation feel threatened because your peace comes from an internal source they haven't discovered. I want you to understand something fundamental about human nature and spiritual warfare. Most people operate from a place of unhealed wounds, hidden fears, and suppressed insecurities. They've built identities around achievements, appearances, and the approval of others. They've created versions of themselves designed to impress, intimidate, or fit in. Then you walk into the room, and without saying a single word, your spirit challenges all of that. Not because you're trying to compete or prove anything, but simply because you exist in a different spiritual dimension. You've been through fires that refined you. You've endured nights that transformed you. You've survived battles that would have destroyed someone else, and that survival forged something unbreakable within you. This internal strength, this quiet confidence, this unexplainable peace you carry, it all comes from a source that cannot be duplicated. People can try to imitate your demeanor, copy your responses, or mirror your behavior, but they cannot access the well you draw from. They see the fruit but don't understand the root. They witness the calm but don't know about the storms you weathered to achieve it. They observe the wisdom but remain ignorant of the wilderness seasons that taught it. They want the crown but refuse the cross. They desire the anointing but reject the altar. And this fundamental misunderstanding is where jealousy plants its first seed. Let me be specific about what's been happening to you, because I know some of you need confirmation right now. You've noticed people studying you when they think you're not looking. You've felt eyes on you during meetings, tracking your movements, analyzing your words, measuring your reactions. You've heard your name in conversations that suddenly stop when you approach. You've seen people huddle together, sharing whispers and glances that clearly involve you. You've experienced the strange phenomenon of being simultaneously visible and invisible, visible enough to be watched, monitored, and discussed, but invisible when it comes to recognition, appreciation, or inclusion. They see you clearly when they want to criticize, but somehow overlook you when it's time to celebrate or acknowledge contributions. You've probably also noticed how people respond differently to you than they do to others. When someone else makes a suggestion, it's received with enthusiasm and consideration. When you offer the same idea, it's met with skepticism and resistance. When another colleague achieves something, the congratulations flow freely and genuinely. When you accomplish something significant, the acknowledgement is either absent or wrapped in subtle undermining comments. "Oh, you got lucky. Must be nice to have those connections." Well, the project was basically done already. They cannot simply celebrate you because your success triggers something deep within them, something they don't want to face about themselves. This is where we need to talk about the spiritual principle of reflection. You are a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable when they're not ready to see their true reflection. Your discipline reflects their lack of it. Your focus reflects their distraction. Your integrity reflects their compromises. Your peace reflects their chaos. Your purpose reflects their aimlessness. Every quality that has been developed in you through your journey with the divine becomes a reflection point for those around you. And most people don't like what they see when they stand next to you. Not because you're better than them, not because you're trying to make them feel inferior, but because proximity to genuine light always reveals shadows. The workplace has become a modern battleground for spiritual warfare, and most people don't even realize they're participants. They think they're just dealing with office politics, personality conflicts, or professional competition. But beneath the surface of every envious glance, every undermining comment, every exclusionary tactic, there's a spiritual dynamic at play. Darkness cannot coexist comfortably with light. Pretense cannot rest easy next to authenticity. Ego cannot operate freely around genuine humility. Performance-based identity feels threatened by purpose-driven existence. This is why you've felt like you're fighting battles that have nothing to do with your actual work performance or professional capabilities. You do your job well, perhaps excellently. You meet your deadlines, exceed expectations, contribute valuable ideas, and maintain professionalism. Yet somehow, you're still the target of subtle hostility. People who barely know you have already formed negative opinions. Colleagues who have never worked directly with you seem to have predetermined judgments. New team members are warned about you before they've even met you. All of this happens not because of what you've done, but because of what you represent. You represent possibility that intimidates them. You represent growth that convicts them. You represent alignment that exposes their misalignment. You represent divine favor that reminds them of what they've been running from. Your spirit carries authority, and I'm not talking about the authority that comes from job titles or organizational hierarchy. I'm talking about spiritual authority, the kind that cannot be granted by human institutions or stripped away by human rejection. This authority was forged during your lowest moments when you had nothing to rely on except faith. It was built during lonely seasons when you cried out to the divine and heard answers that transformed you. It was developed through trials that tested every part of your character and forced you to decide who you would become. Every betrayal you survived, every disappointment you processed, every wound you allowed to heal properly instead of becoming bitter, all of it contributed to the unshakable foundation you now stand on. People with fragile egos and unstable spirits cannot handle this kind of solid presence. They've spent years building houses on sand, crafting identities based on what others think, chasing validation from sources that can never truly satisfy. Then you appear standing firm on rock, completely unmoved by the storms that send them into panic. Your stability exposes their instability. Your groundedness highlights their rootlessness. They don't know how to process someone who doesn't need their approval, doesn't compete for their attention, and doesn't crumble under their pressure. So they respond the only way they know how, with jealousy, suspicion, and subtle attacks designed to shake what they cannot understand. But here's what you need to know right now. Every uncomfortable moment you've experienced, every jealous stare you've endured, every exclusionary tactic you've witnessed, it's all been confirmation of something powerful. You are walking in alignment with a purpose that transcends the environment you're currently in. The resistance you're facing is not a sign that you're in the wrong place. It's evidence that you're carrying something significant. The enemy doesn't waste energy on people who pose no threat to his kingdom. The darkness doesn't attack lights that aren't shining. The fact that you're experiencing this level of spiritual opposition means you're on the verge of something breakthrough, and everything around you can sense it even if you can't see it yet yourself. The tension you've been feeling isn't just in your head, and it's time we name exactly what's been happening in that workplace of yours. Every single day, you walk into what appears to be a normal professional environment, but spiritually, you're stepping onto a battlefield. The fluorescent lights, the office cubicles, the conference rooms, they all seem ordinary enough, but there's an invisible war taking place that most people are completely blind to. You feel it though, don't you? You sense it in ways that others don't because your spiritual antenna is tuned to frequencies that the average person can't detect. This isn't about being special or superior. It's about being awakened to realities that exist beyond what the natural eye can see. Let me describe what this silent warfare looks like in practical, everyday terms, because I know you need validation right now. You need to know that what you've been experiencing is real, that you're not making it up, that you're not being overly sensitive or paranoid. When you arrive in the morning, there's a group already gathered near the coffee station or someone's desk, engaged in animated conversation. The moment you come within earshot, the energy shifts dramatically. Voices lower, the discussion changes topics abruptly, or worse, an uncomfortable silence falls over the group. They offer you a forced smile, a brief greeting that lacks warmth, and you can feel the invisible wall between you and them. You walk to your desk carrying that heaviness, knowing something was just said about you, feeling the residue of conversations you weren't meant to hear. Throughout the day, you notice the patterns repeating. There are group chats you're mysteriously not included in, despite being part of the team. Lunch plans are made in hushed tones, and when you happen to ask about them, you're met with vague responses or sudden changes in plans. You see the social media posts later, photos of your colleagues enjoying meals together, laughing, bonding, deliberately documenting moments you were excluded from. They want you to see it. They want you to feel the sting of being left out. This isn't accidental oversight, it's calculated exclusion, and it serves a specific purpose in their minds. By keeping you on the outside, they maintain a sense of control and superiority, even though deep down they know they're operating from insecurity. In meetings, the dynamic becomes even more obvious. You present an idea you've carefully researched and developed, speaking with clarity and confidence. The room responds with silence or immediate skepticism. Questions are raised not out of genuine curiosity, but to poke holes and find weaknesses. Your suggestion is quickly dismissed or tabled for later discussion. Then, not even 20 minutes later, someone else presents essentially the same concept worded differently, and suddenly everyone thinks it's brilliant. The enthusiasm is palpable, the praise flows freely, and you sit there watching your own idea get credited to someone else while you're expected to smile and be a team player. This isn't coincidence, this is spiritual theft, and it happens to awaken people constantly because others feed off the energy and creativity that divine connection produces. The subtle sabotage continues in various forms. You're given incomplete information about projects, then held accountable when things don't go perfectly. You're assigned tasks with unrealistic deadlines while others receive extensions without even asking. Your work is scrutinized with a microscope while similar or lesser quality work from others gets approved without question. When you excel despite the obstacles, the recognition is minimal or comes with qualifying statements that diminish your achievement. It was a team effort. The timing was just right. Anyone could have done it with those resources. They cannot simply say you did well because admitting your excellence forces them to confront their own mediocrity. Pay attention to how information flows around you versus to you. Critical details about meetings, deadline changes, or project updates somehow fail to reach you until it's almost too late. When you ask why you weren't informed, you hear excuses about miscommunication, assumptions that someone else told you, or claims that the information was sent to everyone when you have no record of receiving it. Meanwhile, those same colleagues seem to have no problem staying informed, coordinating with each other, and ensuring they're always in the loop. This information gatekeeping is a power play designed to make you stumble, to create situations where you appear unprepared or uninformed, even though the real issue is deliberate exclusion from communication channels. There's also the energy of constant monitoring that you've probably noticed. Your arrival time is noted, even though you're always punctual or early. Your break times are tracked, though no one seems to clock anyone else's movements. Your interactions with leadership are observed and later questioned. What were you talking to the boss about? Why did you get called into that meeting? The surveillance comes from a place of fear mixed with fascination. They're afraid you might be advancing beyond them, gaining favor they don't have, accessing opportunities they desire. But they're also fascinated by you, trying to decode your success, attempting to figure out what makes you different so they can either copy it or undermine it. The false friendships are perhaps the most insidious aspect of this silent war. These are the colleagues who position themselves close to you, acting interested in your life, your projects, your ideas. They ask probing questions disguised as friendly concern. How are you planning to approach that assignment? What strategies are you using? How did you come up with that solution? They're mining for information, gathering intelligence they can use later. Some will even offer help that comes with strings attached or contains subtle misdirection. They'll volunteer to assist with a project, then either fail to follow through or intentionally do subpar work that reflects poorly on you. Or they'll give you advice that sounds helpful but actually leads you away from the most effective path. Then watch as you struggle with the consequences. You've probably encountered the manipulators who practice something I call emotional ambush. They'll be cordial for weeks, lulling you into a false sense of ease, then suddenly bring up something you said or did weeks ago, twisting it into something it wasn't, using it as ammunition in front of others. Or they'll praise you publicly while simultaneously planting seeds of doubt. Wow, you're so talented. I don't know how you manage to do so much. You must be exhausted. I hope you're not burning out. On the surface, it sounds like concern, but spiritually, they're speaking limitation over you, projecting their own capacity onto your calling, hoping to plant thoughts of failure and fatigue in your mind. Credit theft happens in both obvious and subtle ways. Sometimes it's blatant, someone literally taking your work and presenting it as their own. Other times it's more nuanced. You contribute significantly to a project, but when it's presented to leadership, your name is conspicuously absent or mentioned only in passing. You generate the breakthrough idea in a brainstorming session, but by the time it's formalized, it's been attributed to the team generally or to whoever wrote up the final proposal. You solve a critical problem, but someone else reports the solution to management and receives the recognition. Each instance might seem small enough to overlook, but collectively, they form a pattern of systematic diminishment designed to keep you from receiving the acknowledgement your work deserves. Then there's the gossip network, that invisible web of whispered conversations and shared judgments that operates behind your back. They discuss your clothes, your communication style, your personal life, your perceived attitude. They create narratives about you that have little basis in reality, but get repeated until they take on a life of their own. You're too quiet, which must mean you're unfriendly or think you're better than everyone. You're too focused, which must mean you're not a team player. You're too calm under pressure, which must mean you're cold or don't care. Every quality that actually demonstrates strength gets reinterpreted through the lens of jealousy and turned into a character flaw. Some of you have experienced the phenomenon of being tested in ways others aren't. When you make a minor mistake, it's treated as a major issue requiring meetings and documentation. When someone else makes the same error or worse, it's quickly forgotten or excused. Your boundaries are challenged repeatedly. If you decline to participate in after-work social events because you value your personal time or have other commitments, you're labeled as antisocial or not committed to the team culture. If you don't engage in office gossip, you're seen as judgmental or standoffish. If you maintain professional distance, you're accused of being cold. But if you were to fully engage in all these things, they'd find different reasons to criticize, because the real issue isn't your behavior, it's your presence. The spiritual warfare intensifies when you start succeeding despite all the obstacles. Your resilience becomes even more threatening than your talent. The fact that you continue to thrive, grow, and maintain your peace while navigating all this opposition absolutely infuriates those operating in jealousy. They've thrown everything they can at you, used every tactic in their arsenal, yet you're still standing, still shining, still moving forward. This is when the attacks may escalate, or when people begin to distance themselves entirely because they realize their efforts to diminish you are failing, and watching you succeed anyway is too painful for their ego to handle. Understanding this silent war is crucial because it helps you stop taking things personally and start seeing them spiritually. These battles aren't really about you as a person. They're about what you carry, what you represent, and what threatens the comfortable darkness that many people prefer to live in. Your light doesn't give them permission to stay comfortable in their shadows, and that discomfort manifests as hostility, exclusion, and all the subtle warfare tactics we've discussed. But here's the powerful truth you need to hold on to. Every single one of these attacks is actually confirmation that you're walking in purpose, carrying power, and positioned for promotion that they can sense coming even before you see it yourself.